Hi, Luke here with Solid State Logic, and today we're taking a closer look at the SSL UF1 with Ableton Live.
UF1 is an incredibly powerful one-fader controller that packs in the same functionality you'd expect from a control surface twice its size, boasting two high-resolution displays, a fully motorised fader and all-metal chassis. UF1 brings SSL quality and hands-on control straight to your desktop. With comprehensive command of your DAW, UF1 is equipped with dedicated transport buttons, as well as the ability to control pans, sends, plugins, and even customize 46 soft keys specifically to your workflow. What's more, UF1 allows you to work with up to 3 different DAWs simultaneously and easily switch between them. What really sets UF1 apart is its integration with the SSL Meter plugin. Viewable in all its glory on the impressive 4.3-inch IPS display and completely controllable from the UF1 and the 360 plugin mixer. UF1 can be used on its own as your main DAW controller, or it can be partnered with the UF8 to give you an enhanced SSL control surface experience. It's also the perfect hardware expansion for the UC1 plugin controller, giving you direct access to 360-enabled channel strips and on-screen visual feedback of your EQ curves. When unpacking UF1, you will find a 12-volt DC power supply, 2 stands and an associated screw and hex key to attach them to the UF1. You'll also find a 1.5 metre USB-C type cable and handy C to A adapter should you require it. Flip the UF1 over and choose which set of pre-drilled holes to attach the stands to. Different hole pairs give you different angle options. You can even swap the rubber feet to the opposite end of each stand to allow for a steeper angle. Once your stands are set up, connect the UF1 to your computer via the USB-C port. The USB-A port labelled through is a built-in USB hub that can be used to chain through a UF8 or UC1, or it can be used for dongles. The 2 jack sockets are for connecting foot switches and can be assigned to door commands like play and stop. Now it's time to register our UF1 and download the required software. Registering UF1 allows you to claim your complimentary SSL Meter plugin license, so let's do that first. Go to the SSL website and log into your account, or create one if you need to. Once logged in, go to My Products, then click Register Product, then Register Hardware. Choose SSL UF1 from the drop-down list and fill in the form. The serial number of the UF1 can be found on the base of your unit. Once successfully registered, click on Get Your Additional Software. Then enter your iLok user ID and click Validate. Once validated by the system, click Deposit and then your Meter plugin license will be deposited into your iLok account. Open iLok License Manager and activate your SSL Meter plugin to your computer or iLok. Finally, head back to the SSL website and go to the Downloads page and filter the list to SSL 360. Download and install the SSL Meter plugin and the SSL 360 software itself, which is required for UF1 to function. Once SSL 360 is installed, launch the app. Your UF1 will appear on the home page, alongside any other SSL controllers you may have connected. The first thing you'll need to do is update the UF1 firmware via the Update Firmware button. Do not unplug the unit whilst this is in progress. Once the firmware update has completed, allow a bit of time for UF1 to reappear on screen. To complete the UF1 hardware setup, you can go to the Sleep Settings menu and adjust the amount of inactivity time before the UF1 hardware goes to sleep. Just type in your preferred value into the green text area, or you can turn the sleep off completely if you prefer by disabling the square tick box. One of UF1's special features is its ability to trigger keyboard command sequences from your favourite DAW shortcuts. These are assigned using SSL 360, which we'll cover later. When you first plug in your UF1, macOS should present the Keyboard Setup Assistant window because it wants you to identify which region, Europe, America, or Japan, this as unyet identified keyboard is from. If you connect UF1 to your computer before installing SSL 360, you'll need to close this Setup Assistant and come back to it because SSL 360 needs to be installed on your computer in order to continue through this setup process. Once 360 has been installed, you can make this Setup Assistant reappear again by doing the following. Open up Mac System Preferences. Go to Keyboard and click Change Keyboard Type. When presented with the identifying your keyboard screen and you are being asked to press the key immediately to the right of the Shift key, go to UF1, press and hold the 360 button, and whilst keeping this pressed, press the Mac Key ID button. This will move you through to the final steps of the process where you can choose your region and click Done. Next, we want to configure UF1 to work with Live. To do this, let's open up 360 and navigate to the Control Setup page. In the DAW Configuration section, choose Live from the drop-down list for DAW1. If you use other DAWs, you can go ahead and choose these for DAWs 2 and 3 also. Or you can just leave them set to none if you only use one DAW. Now, proceed to the UF1 page and set up Layer 1 to Live. Again, if you're using multiple DAWs, you can set these to Layers 2 and 3, or you can choose the 360 plugin mixer. Once you've configured your layers, you can easily switch between them by pressing and holding the 360 button, and whilst keeping this held down, press the desired button from the top row. You'll notice there's nothing much happening on screen yet, and that's because we need to configure an MCU controller inside of Live. So, within Live, let's go to the Preferences, then go to the Link, Tempo, MIDI tab. We're then going to the Control Surface section, and then in the first row, we're going to a Mackie controller. Then, set the input as SSL vMIDI port 1, and the output to SSL vMIDI port 1 also. The amount of SSL vMIDI ports you need to configure depends on the amount of SSL controllers you are using. If you've just got a UF1 or a UF1 and a UF8, then you only need to configure SSL vMIDI port 1 because UF8 and UF1 both communicate on the first port given to any controller layer. Please note, if you're configuring Live on Layer 2, then the port number would start with 5, and on Layer 3 they would start at 9. With our setup complete, UF1 has bounced into action with the track metering and track name on the small display and the DAW timeline readout boldly presented across the large screen. You can also switch between SMPTE and bars and beats by pressing the button here. On the bottom of the small display, you'll see the parameter currently assigned to the VPot, which right now is pan. A push on the pot will default the pan to center. It's a similar affair on the large display, where across the bottom you can see the first 4 channels of the current controller bank where you can control the pan of these channels in the same way. You can even use the 5 to 8 button to get to the channels 5 to 8 in the bank. Let's disable 5 to 8 and go back to 1 to 4 on the large screen. Down in the fader section, we have the solo, cut or mute, and select keys, along with the super smooth 100mm motorized fader. When I move a fader, you'll see the display automatically show a fader dB readout for a short time before returning to show me the pan value. We've then got the flip key, great for moving parameters such as pan and sends onto the fader for precise control and writing automation changes. At the bottom of the strip, there is the master button, which in Live will lock the fader to the master output channel. Moving along the bottom of UF1, we come to the primary transport keys with rewind, fast forward, stop, play, and record. Above them, we then have the secondary transport controls, which in Live are set to page left and page right, which we'll need later for controlling some send and plugin parameters. Loop on and off, then next to that the metronome, which is currently unassigned, but we'll look at this a little later on in the video. After this, we have Quick Key 1, which is assigned to back to arrangement, and Quick Key 2, which changes UF1 to control my return tracks in Live. See here as I'm controlling return A on the fader. But let's disengage to return UF1 to controlling regular tracks within Live. The secondary transport keys can be customised within the 360 app, as can the top row of soft keys. There are 10 pages of soft keys you can customise, and you can cycle through them using the left and right arrow keys here. Let's say we want to change the function of one of the secondary transport keys. For example, we want to change Quick Key 1, so we simply open up the 360 app, go to the UF1 page and click on the DAW Commands button and find what we want from the list. So for example, I can assign this key to be Record Arm by choosing the Rec Ready command from near the bottom of this list. Now, when I go back to UF1, you'll see UF1 is doing this for me. The Shift button would normally repurpose the secondary transport keys to be the available automation modes, but this is not applicable in Live. Moving up from the transport, we come to the cursor keys with a mode key in the centre. When working in session view, the cursor keys allow you to navigate up, down, left and right to highlight the clip you want to launch, and the mode key in the middle launches that particular clip. Or I can use the jog wheel to scroll up and down the entire scene and launch them with the launch scene button at the top of UF1 here. Moving to arrangement view, I can use the cursor keys to move the on-screen cursor around the arrangement, left and right like so, and up and down the tracks. Engaging the mode button in the middle will allow me to perform vertical zooming on currently selected tracks, as well as horizontal zooming. In the arrangement view, the jog wheel scrolls me around the timeline. The scrub soft key has no active control in live and is therefore disabled. Let's now take a look at using the channel encoder. By default, the channel encoder is used to move your DAW tracks across the UF1 surface in increments of one channel at a time. Pushing the channel encoder brings up a sub-menu with different modes it can be assigned to. To choose a different option, simply scroll until it's highlighted, then push to confirm. Fader Select mode allows us to move the focused fader within the confines of the bank of controller channels. For example, I have now changed UF1's fader so that it is looking at channel 5 in the current controller bank, which you can see in the top area of the display. You may need to use this function to access tracks at the end of Live's mixer when the bank of 8 faders UF1 is controlling butts up against the end of the session. Or, for example, to access all of your return tracks. For example, let's press Quick Key 2 and go into return mode, and now I can use the channel encoder to move the various return tracks onto the UF1's fader. Let's scroll back down to return A and disengage return mode by pressing Quick Key 2. Focus mode emulates the scroll function of a mouse. This can be a really nice way of controlling plugins or anything else on screen that responds to a mouse scroll operation. Simply open a plugin, I've got Blitzer here, and hover your computer mouse over a control and turn the encoder. Now I can dial in the perfect amount, just as if I was using analog hardware by letting my ears set the level instead of the mouse. The final channel encoder mode is volume, allowing me to control the system volume level from the UF1, if the audio device I'm using can be controlled by the operating system's volume up and down. For example, if you're on the road with your headphones plugged into your computer's built-in audio output. The Send soft key assigns the sends level control across the VPOTs on UF1. So if I go ahead and press the Send key, I can then use the left and right cursor keys to select the track I want to control the sends on, like so. The number of the selected track in Ableton is shown with the 2-digit text in the centre of the screen. So moving the VPOTs will adjust the various send levels on the track. What's great is that I get a precise level readout above the level bar, and I can also reset the level to -infinity by clicking down on the VPOT. If I've got more than 4 sends, I can get to the rest of them by using the page right key down in the secondary transport area. Live's own instruments such as Operator, as well as third-party plugins, can all be controlled directly from the UF1 surface. To do this, I first select the device's soft key. I can then use the left and right cursor keys to select the track I want to control the device or plugin on, like so, with UF1 once again telling me which number track I have selected with the blue digits. The devices I have on the track are shown across the 4 VPOTs, and if I have more than 4, I can use the 5 to 8 key and see these there. To access the device's parameters, I just need to click on the VPOTs of the device I want, and now the device's parameters are spread across the VPOTs, which I could control like this. If the device has more parameters, I can access these with both the 5 to 8 key and the page left and right keys, like so. Pushing a VPOT will return the parameter to its default setting. To come back up a level to viewing devices, I simply press the devices key once more. The I/O key allows you to change the input type and input source, as well as the output type and output channel for each track. So if I hit the I/O key, I can now see the input type for each channel for the 4 pots and can change the input type by cycling through the available options via the VPOT. And of course, I can hit the 5 to 8 key to see the input type for the next 4 channels of the bank of 8. Now, to cycle through the input source, I just need to hit the I/O button again, and now I can see the input source. Hitting the I/O soft key again, I can cycle through the output type, and again, if I hit the I/O soft key, now I can see the output destination, which of course I can adjust on the VPOT. Earlier in the video, we assigned the MCU record arm function to the soft key in the secondary transport row. Now, let's take a look at assigning a soft key to a keyboard shortcut. To do this, let's go into 360 and go to the Live layer. Now, in Live, we don't have a pre-assigned key to control the metronome, but by using Live's shortcut key mapping tool, I can assign a keyboard command by pressing Command plus K on a Mac or Control plus K on a Windows machine and using the M key, which we can now see is assigned to the metronome toggle. Now, let's hit the 360 key to access the Live control page in UF1, and let's select the metronome key, and here I'm going to assign the M key and name it metronome in the label section and press close. Now, if I hit the metronome soft key, I can now toggle Live's metronome. If I were programming a more complex keyboard macro that contained multiple lines, you'll notice there is an option to add a delay time between the commands. This can be useful for more complex sequences where software windows sometimes take a short time to open, ensuring the command is executed properly at each stage. Any changes you make to softkey assignments are automatically saved in the background for you by 360, but if you wish to save or load different profiles, for example a tracking configuration and a mixing configuration, you can do so via the Save and Load buttons in the left-hand menu. If you wish to reset a DAW profile to its factory shipped settings, simply press the Revert button. When using UF1 with Live, there are 3 different modes we can choose from. We can toggle the different modes by simply pressing the Mode button, or we can jump straight to the desired mode by pressing and holding the Mode key and then using the options on the soft keys to jump straight to that mode. The default mode we have is General DAW, which is the mode we've been working in so far. When we change to DAW Faders mode, the VPOTs will now control the fader levels for the 4 channels in the controller bank. We can access channels 5 to 8 by simply pressing the 5 to 8 button like so. Let's go back to 1 to 4. We can also use this to control the return tracks faders by engaging Quick Key 2. The final mode is the SSL meter mode, allowing direct control of the SSL meter plugin parameters. We'll cover this in a moment, but let's first briefly explore the UF8 and UF1 combo. The UF1 is a perfect complement to the UF8 control surface. As you can see, both controllers are in perfect sync, and as I select pan on one, the other unit follows. Same for sends. If I like, I can switch the fader on UF1 to control the master fader in Live, simply by pressing the master button. And now for even more flexibility, I can have the channel encoder working in different modes. For example, I can put the UF1 into focus mode, which emulates the mouse scroll, great for quick hands-on access to DAW parameters, whilst the channel encoder on UF8 remains in its default channel mode, allowing me to bank the control surface around the session 1 channel at a time. One of the primary applications of the UF1 is to control the SSL meter plugin and deliver key information on your mix without cluttering your DAW view. We can access meter mode in 2 different ways. If you are on your DAW layer, then simply toggle to the yellow mode. You can also toggle into the meter mode when UF1 is assigned to the plugin mixer layer, but more on this later. As I insert the SSL meter plugin onto my mix bus in the DAW, it automatically appears on the UF1 screen. We can toggle through the 3 different views of the meter plugin directly from the UF1 overview, to the analog meters, to the 31-band real-time analyzer. The meter plugin is also mirrored in the SSL 360 plugin mixer sidebar above the bus compressors. Back to UF1. The reset button clears any overloads or max values. Fine puts the VPOTs into a finer resolution for dialing in precise parameter values, and the preset button allows me to quickly load my meter plugin presets directly from the surface. The first VPOT always allows me to select from any of the 8 possible meter plugins that are connected to 360. In the overview screen, on the left, we can see instantaneous peak and RMS levels on the meters, and we can change the scale by cycling through the parameters via the second VPOT, with various linear, non-linear and K-system options. The next VPOT gives us control of the RMS integration time, which can be reset to default by clicking on the VPOT. The meter readout in the centre of the screen gives me a precise text feed to understand the meters, with max and current readouts for both peak and RMS levels. To the right of the screen, we have the Lissajous phase scope, along with stereo balance and phase correlation meters above and below. The fourth VPOT allows me to change the fade rate of the Lissajous. I can use the page right arrow to get to the peak hold time and to set whether true peak metering is on or off. Moving to the analog view, we're presented with a VU meter readout by default, a trusted metering method for analog balances used in music studios for years. The VU meter display uses two needles to give insight to your mix, with the black needle displaying the current level and the red needle the max level. Amongst the parameters for the VU meter, we have the choice of picking between the +4 dBu 0 VU standard or the -2 dBu 0 VU standard. And to the right of that, we have the reference level on the fourth VPOT, which allows us an easy way of tweaking the VU's operation to suit your preferred gain staging in the DAW. If you are using a VU meter as a critical part of your hybrid mixing system, then you would set the reference level to match your digital to analog converter's operating level. For example, for a +18 dBu system, set the reference to -18. Then if you use a signal generator to send a sine wave of 4 dBs higher, i.e. -14 dBFS, you'll see the VU readout as 0. Moving to the second parameter page, we have options for the max needle, allowing us to switch it off, give it a 2-second hold, or move it to an infinite max reading. The third VPOT gives us the option to change the VU from monitoring left and right to mid-side, and finally on the fourth VPOT, we can dial in a global delay for the meter plugin, should you need to manually compensate for differing latencies across multiple DAW buses. Finally, moving back to the first page of the soft keys, you can switch from VU to PPM with the second VPOT, PPM being the popular metering reference in broadcast for balancing program material. The final view from the meter plugin is the Real-Time Analyzer, or RTA. This view gives us a 31-band real-time analyzer graphic readout displaying the source material's frequency response between 20 Hz and 20 kHz. Via the second VPOT, we can interrogate each band independently to see real-time level information displayed at the top of the graph, as well as adjusting the scale top and bottom parameters via VPOTs 3 and 4 to narrow down our viewpoints like so. Moving to soft key page 2, we can then add further adjustment to the display, selecting peak hold time, RTA weighting options, and finally RTA averaging from real-time to fast, medium, slow, or infinite settings. The last of which is great for getting an idea of the tonal qualities of your entire mix. On the final parameter page, you can specify the analysis source, which defaults to left and right sum, but can be changed to be left only, right only, mid, or side. UF1 is the perfect hardware extension for the UC1, giving deeper access to the 360-enabled channel strip plugins like Channel Strip 2 and 4KB via the plugin mixer layer in SSL 360. When working in the plugin mixer layer, we can jump between SSL meter mode and channel strip mode. Meter mode is identical to accessing the meter plugin and its parameters from a DAW layer, so now we're going to focus on channel strip mode. Firstly, let's set the UF1 to control the plugin mixer on layer 3. Next, let's make sure the tick box for UF1 follows selected plugin mixer channel strip instance is on, but let's leave automatically page soft keys to follow last move channel strip in plugin parameter disabled for now. Then, in the control setup page, make sure that the plugin mixer transport is linked to the DAW your channel strips are hosted within. This ensures we get the DAW transport controls on the plugin mixer layer. Now that's set, let's jump across to the plugin mixer page, where we can see all our 360 enabled channel strips we have in our DAW session. I can hide and close the sidebar to view my connected meter plugins and bus compressor instances. I can also hide or show the fader tray section and collapse my meters at the top if I want to manipulate my screen real estate further. If we take a look at the UF1 on the small display above the fader, we can see the track's name on the selected channel strip, along with the inserted channel strip type, bypass key, dB level, and our pan position, controllable via the VPOT below. If we jump over to the large screen on the UF1, we can see the currently selected DAW time display readout in the top centre, and the current DAW host to the left, which we can change directly from the UF1 by clicking on the channel encoder, cycling to another DAW host if we have one, and pushing to confirm. Please note that this section of the tutorial video is DAW agnostic, so don't be concerned that we have Pro Tools on the display here. The functionality from UF1 is similar regardless of DAW. On the opposite side of the display, we see the current Softkey bank page, which we can cycle through as you'd expect with the arrow keys. At the bottom of UF1, Quick Key 1 is assigned to Solo Clear for any DAWs where 360 is not linked to the DAW's own solo and cut system, and Quick Key 2 allows you to put the encoders into fine resolution mode. And finally, in the middle of the large display, we can see the visualization of the EQ curve on the currently selected channel strip. Across the VPOTs below, we have access to the channel strip parameters via paging the Softkey banks, and you can see the high and low pass filters, followed by each EQ band's gain, frequency and Q width mapped to the associated VPOTs, along with the Softkey toggles for band pass and curve types if available. The real beauty of combining UF1 and UC1 is that certain parameters previously limited to UC1's extended functions menu are now accessible via the first page of UF1 Softkeys, making the duo a powerful pair, no more menu diving required. As you can see, we can access the pan, width, mic pre, out trim and compressor mix all across the VPOTs. And we now have access to the plug-in fader too, as well as solo and cut. Scrolling through the channels via the encoder on the UF1 will cause the UC1 to follow and vice versa. We can also use the bank buttons to move in blocks of 8 for quickly navigating through our mix. Whilst we're looking at the navigation of the channels in the plugin mixer, it's also worth noting that we can use the cursor keys to quickly navigate the plugin mixer window, with the up and down arrows moving us vertically up and down the channel strip and left and right allowing us to scroll through the mixer window horizontally. A really cool feature is the master mode, which allows UC1 and UF1 to work independently. Pressing master, I can now set UF1 to control a different channel to UC1. This is convenient if we wish to control one channel's EQ whilst working on another's dynamic sections perhaps, or if we wish to leave the UF1 to control the fader of a lead vocal whilst working on other channels with a UC1 surface. A final tip, if you are using UF1 without a UC1, then you may wish to enable automatically page Softkeys to follow last move channel strip parameter, so that UF1 will automatically page its controls to the relevant page of parameters in response to moving a plugin or plugin mixer control. For example, if I move the ratio control on this compressor, then UF1 pages to show me the ratio control on the surface, and I can quickly dive in for hands-on control of it.
We hope you've enjoyed this UF1 tutorial video, and for more information on UF1, head to the SSL website. Or for more information on using UF1 with a different DAW, check out some of our other UF1 videos on the Solid State Logic YouTube page.